And welcome to Conservatives Talk.
And we're about to pay for an overpriced middle school, and we're going to talk about it.
And welcome back to Conservatives Talk. My name is Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as you can see on your screen there, we are doing a fourth iteration of our Roman special. And before we really kick off with a lot of that, we, as always, would like to make sure that you are hitting the like button and the share button on any of our productions that you see that we produce. And you should also hit the subscribe button because we will be coming out with more of these as we go along throughout this municipal election cycle, and bringing you the facts and the information and reporting to you exactly what it is that's going on, simply because we have no local news affiliates that will do that. They'll give you one side without actually telling you exactly what is happening.
Or spend all morning with you and not tell you the entire truth.
That too. And you can find a lot of our episodes and really help us in being able to produce and to get more of these out and continue to spread the good gospel. You can find a lot of that by going to our website at conservativestalk.org. And to help us out, hit that sponsor tab up in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because every little bit does go an incredibly long way into allowing us to be able to expose a lot of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes here in our city and bringing you other topics from across the country as well. So, Jamie, with that, would you please give us your first reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines, because liberal media has no place in Northwest Georgia.
And, I think we actually need to expand that. Not just boycott hometown headlines, but do boycott around town as well. It's the same person.
Yeah.
Same person, different title. They were hurting with hometown headlines, so they changed the name.
Well, because of you all and your boycott,
exactly.
You killed the brand, so they just rebranded. That's fine. Once it's completely died out, then we'll switch to the other one.
Deal. And go a little bit further with a lot of this. We do rely on our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So you can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. It is it's a compilation of local grassroots producers and news organizers to where you're able to get a very good on-the-ground, local, firsthand perspective of things going on in particular areas across the country. So we want to say a quick thank you to them. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. It is the premier America First policy organization that really pushes the America First policy initiative. And they really do a lot of that through their media arm, Vet Voice. So make sure you are looking for Vet Voice on every major social media platform. So, Jamie, with that in mind, how about let's bring on our special guest to talk about this issue with us.
And with that, we're going to bring on Ken Wright. Ken?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
If we were any better, we honestly don't know if anybody want to put up with us.
That's what my girlfriend says.
Well, so kind of like what we were talking about just a moment ago between Jamie and I, we wanted to bring you on because we saw the recording of you addressing the Rome City Commission about your thoughts on the new middle school proposal that was just passed, where we're going to be spending or borrowing essentially. We're going to be borrowing quite a bit, but we're going to be spending $120 million essentially to build a new middle school here in Rome. And kind of want to turn it over to you and just give us your thoughts on where or why you think this is not a great idea for this to be done in Rome.
Okay. Thank you for having me on the show, first of all.
Absolutely.
I did speak at the city commission meeting. Obviously, you can only speak for 3 minutes. They cut you off at 3 minutes. So I appreciate the opportunity to say a little more. There's multiple reasons why I'm opposed to this. Primarily, my main issue is I wanted to find out what the goal of this is. My goal would be to prove the educational attainment of students, to to provide them the best education that they can, give them the most opportunity, make them successful in life and self-sustaining. So if I look at this and we're looking at a new building doesn't accomplish that, in my opinion. And I gave them some statistics to validate that. You know, we have basically a Rome High School that performs less than all the Floyd County high schools. So that's a problem. You know, Rome High is much newer than, say, an Armurchie High School. Armurchie High School is 40 years old. It's the oldest building in the county. But yet, if you look at Georgia Milestone scores and how those students are scoring, they score better in every subject matter at every grade than Rome High. And then as I look further, actually, Pepperell, Model, Coosa, and Armurchie all scored better than Rome High. The concerning part for me was just 5 or 6 years ago, Rome High was the top. Rome High actually exceeded all the other county high schools. So something has changed, and it's not the building. Rome High is in the same building. So it has nothing to do with the age of the building, and it has nothing to do with the cost of the building. So that was a concern. You know, if we're actually looking for what provides the best education for the student, does a building solve the problems that they're currently having? And Rome City Schools has some problems. They have problems with, you know, violence, knives, guns, fights. They've had the decline in academic achievement is most concerning to me. So, you know, I shared that with them, and I was really disturbed by Superintendent Holland's comments that said, this isn't comparing apples to apples. You can't do that. Our students can't measure the same because of their demographics. Well, I'm not a parent of a Rome City School student, but I would have been highly irritated with that comment.
Absolutely.
To try to infer that because of their demographics, they can't be as smart or score as high on a test or be as successful as a student from Floyd County or Darlington is just ludicrous to me. That makes no sense, especially when 5-6 years ago they did. Yeah. So it's not that the demographics hadn't changed. You had the same demographics 5 and 6 years ago. So that's not the difference. So anyway, that's what's in. My goal was this school is not going to do it. The other part of that was they're proposing $120 million minimum. And actually, if you look at what they passed, one document said $120 million, another document says $130 million. I don't know if y'all noticed that. But either way, Pepperell High School was built for $30 million. Coosa High School was built for $32 million. In total, our 4 county high schools in total have been less than what Rome wants to spend for a middle school. So that's a problem, in my opinion. Even with I know that there's been inflation and cost of building materials has gone up, but still
not that much.
Yeah, not that much.
And that's still a problem. And then I wanted to find out what's in the school. And so I did go to the caucus meeting prior to the commission meeting. You know, and I know Rome City gets a lot of flack because people think they're just all about sports. And I'm trying not to get involved in that. But I have to admit, in that caucus, I was very disturbed. Once again, Dr. Holland stood up and he said, we need this money. Our baseball team's having to go play at in Ackworth, you know, at Lake Point to play their baseball games. We need a swimming pool for our swim team. We need softball for our girls softball team and football. And it went on and on and on. And in his conversation, he had one reference to education, and he said he wanted to have some fine arts. So he didn't mention math, geometry, algebra, science, biology, English, history, none of those subjects. That wasn't, it's not his priority, which makes me understand maybe why those measurables in those subjects are declining, because that seems to not be the priority. So that was a problem. I also viewed that those middle school students traveling to Lake Point to play baseball, I'm absolutely sure they love it. I bet those kids love being able to go to Lake Point and play ball. So I'm either way. The focus, it just seemed to be, was more on facilities to promote sports. And there was even some reference to show choir and things like that. But when you're not focusing on the educational subjects, that's a problem. And when you're wanting to spend more than the cost of all 4 county high schools to build a middle school, that's a problem. The additional problem is they're saying that the proceeds from this $120 million that they're going to take, assuming bond debt, along with this ELOS, every penny of that is just going toward a Rome middle school. Well, you got East Central, West Central, Alto Park. You've got a lot of city schools. Yeah. What happens when they need things? Are we going to buy more bonds? Are we going to raise taxes more? I mean, you know, the bigger problem is that the voters voted for an education SPLOST, an ELOST. And that was a 1% tax increase over 4 years directed toward education. What these proposals are is they mentioned 4 to 5 mills, but the wording, and I want to read this because I don't want to misquote it. It says in the agreement, the city is authorized to levy taxes without limitation as to rate or amount to the city. So they're saying that they can raise taxes without any limitation to rate or amount, and it says up to 50 years. Well, that's not what the citizens voted for. 1% over 4 years does not equate to unlimited taxes for up to 50 years, and especially with all the funds going to one school. So,
yeah,
let me ask this question. Let me ask this question, right? So what you're talking about, that's in the portion of the bond, not the E-Splost, right?
That actually was in part of the. This is the ironic part. I didn't sign up to speak at the city commission meeting Monday about this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know if you know, but when you go to speak at the city commission, you have to sign up a week in advance, and then they put out the agenda on a Friday for what they're going to speak about Monday. So if you wait till the agenda, you have no idea what they're going to do. I was going to speak about a totally different subject, but I knew about the $120 million bonds. I was aware of that. But what bothered me was when I saw the agenda, there's 2 additional agreements that were listed within that bond package. So if you look at the agenda, there's $120 million in bonds, and there's 2 intergovernmental agreements. Within those intergovernmental agreements is the wording that if the Board of Education cannot raise the money through these education splosts, and it requires that 4 more education splosts pass to get a total of this $120 million. If those don't pass, the city assumes that debt. The city has agreed that they will assume that debt and pay it if we don't pass an education splost for those next 15, 16 years. So if the city's going to assume the debt in order to do that, they're saying that they have the ability and the power to raise taxes to an unlimited amount to pay back this bond debt. That's a problem. And as I dug into this more deeply, I noticed it may not even be legal. So I looked at the Georgia Department of Revenue side. You go to the Georgia Department of Revenue side, and it says that school systems within a county cannot raise the total millage rate for property taxes cannot exceed 20 mills unless the voters vote to approve it. So in the state of Georgia, there's 3 counties out of 159 that have a tax rate over 20 mills, and the voters had to approve it. Well, I don't know what we're at, 17 mills, I think, and they were talking about raising 4 to 5 mills. They can't do that. They can't raise it to 4 to 5 mills. They can't exceed 20 mills unless the voters vote to tax themselves in excess of 20 mills. So I'm not even sure that they can legitimately do this.
So this is a lot more interesting, right? Because here's the thing. When put my bureaucrat hat on for a second, when we were discussing this beforehand, like that's kind of standard language inside of a bond.
That's right.
When it comes to, you know what I mean? Because one governing body cannot, bind another one to a financial or any other kind of obligation. So that's kind of where that was. But the IGA
these are intergovernmental agreements.
Cover it is the problem.
Yeah, that was not in the bond resolution. That was in the intergovernmental agreement. And it said that the city's obligation is unconditional. No matter what happens in the future, what other obligations they have to repay all this bond debt no matter what.
Now, I'm not an attorney, but when you look at the fact that so what the IGA is supposed to serve as, that's just basically a memorandum of understanding between 2 governmental bodies, right? So from that instance, it's just saying that, hey, we promise the school board that we will cover their debt if the city decide if they can't pay it.
That's right.
Which that's not how that's supposed to work. Because think about the opposite, right? When we pass, when they do the millage rate and they vote for the millage rate, they can't touch the school's millage rate. So it's saying that, hey, the school refuses to raise its millage rate and then put it in its budget, but that the city will cover the loss in its millage rate. That can't work because the opposite can't work.
Yeah,
that's an interesting point.
It is bizarre. That. Yeah, it's bizarre because the millage, the Floyd County Schools determines their own millage rate, which they reduce theirs. Rome City Schools determines their own millage rate. And then Rome City and Floyd County independently so choose their millage rate to cover their M&O. So yeah, you're right. I mean, but the combined total of those, like I said, can exceed 20 mills. I mean,
Correct.
And
Correct.
what we're looking at right now is, by this agreement, I don't see how they can pay back this debt unless they exceed 20 mills.
Or we vote on it.
And we have to vote on it to do that. And we didn't vote on this. The only vote that the citizens took on this was the education SPLOST, the ELOST. That did pass. One ELOST. 4 years of this passed at a 1% increase, which is estimated to bring in the $54,730,000. So you're going to have at least 3 or 4 more of these to pay back this bond debt, to pay for this middle school.
Yeah, so you're looking at 20 years worth of debt there.
Or maybe that's why they did.
Commissioner, well, that's what I believe Commissioner Quick made the reference to. You'll have 6th graders that are graduating from high school with this that are going to continue to carry on this debt.
They're going to,
and their kids.
Oh, way beyond that, because because
2nd graders and 3rd graders, we just voted to increase their taxes and give them debt that they had no choice in assuming. They're going to have to pay the bond debt on this for a school.
Sounds like a pure Democrat.
Well, you know what? It didn't seem like they did the math on this.
Okay. Jamie, let me tell you what the math is on this. So if you went to the commission meeting, and you can look at the recording of the commission meeting, and they go into some of this. So basically, if they just took this first ELOS that did pass by the voters, so it's done. You're going to get that. You're going to get that 1% increase, which is roughly going to raise $55 million, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Commissioner McDaniel said that the state will give $17 million as well to match. So that's $72 million. So if we do nothing, we don't pass a bond package, we don't do any of that, the net proceeds that we have in hand to build a Rome Middle School will be $72 million. Okay. Mm-hmm. Keep that number with no debt. So then they brought up, well, if we're getting 17 million from the state, then maybe we don't need 120 million in bonds. We only have to borrow 103 million because the state's paying 17. Okay, so another commissioner asked the bond attorney, he said, how much is the interest we'll pay on $103 million? And he said, we have to wait till you pass the bonds, but basically I can tell you at the current rate, the estimated interest alone on that 103 million is you will have to repay $48 million in interest. Okay. So the 103 million, you're paying 48 million in interest. So your net proceeds from that, by passing that $103 million bond resolution, would be 55 million. And then you get the 17 from the state, and you have exactly the same amount, 72 million. Yeah. So if we do nothing, we have $72 million to build a middle school. If we go get a $103 million bond and go through that process, we have $72 million to build a middle school, the exact same amount. That's why I said, I don't know what the inability to do math. I don't know how some of these commissioners were incapable of understanding the math that goes into that. But there's no way you can put your community in debt for up to 20 years, and actually the agreement says up to 50 years, and increase their taxes to an unlimited amount when your net proceeds from doing so are the exact same as doing nothing. Explain the logic of that to me.
There isn't any.
Maybe there is. If you look at the proficiency of the Rome City school system just in general, I mean, you're looking at anywhere between 27 to 34% of Rome City school students are at proficiency level or above.
Well, I see what you're saying. You're saying the math tracks when it comes to.
They're a product of the Rome City school system.
But I have so many questions, right? Because here's the model middle school that's 20 years old now, the new one, right? I graduated from there. Was one of the first classes in there. I was one of the last classes, I think the last class to graduate out of the old model high school, the one that had asbestos in the wall. And while we were there,
my own school,
yeah. And while we were there, we won the educational cup from Governor Deal in our classification for having the highest test scores in the state at the time. The facility doesn't make the environment. The environment is what makes the educational part, like the education and the increase of the proficiency of learning. So exactly. I think we have a problem with trying to figure out where do we go from here to make education better. And I think you made a good point. Like, they're spending the money on fields and swimming pools when really, why weren't they talking about smart boards? Why weren't they talking about innovative technology
That's
that's
a
going to be
very good
inside of
point.
the school?
Very good point.
If they were spending $150 million to make sure that every student had a laptop and could do chemistry inside of a safe lab, no one would argue with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's been my whole my problem with the ELOS and those bills, those referendums, because they always say do it for the kids. Well, not a single penny goes to the kids. We know that. But the bigger problem is it doesn't go to teachers, lunchroom workers, bus drivers, maintenance men. It doesn't go to the people that actually make the difference. The quality of education is in the quality of instruction, not in the quality of the building. So, but none of that money goes to that. The money by law can only go into assets and capital assets. So it has to go into buildings or HVACs or buses or things like that, swimming pools, weight rooms, and things like that. I thought of one more idea that is really bothering me. It's laying in the back of my mind, because if you're talking about going into debt, 20 up to 50 years, y'all realize how much education has changed in the last 20 years. Yeah. With so much that's done virtual and online, are we even going to have school buildings 20 to 30 years from now? I mean, I know there's colleges right now that 70% of their enrollment in colleges is virtual. It's online. They're not even going into a building. So
there are other school districts that are around here that still give the children the option in high school.
They do. Absolutely.
Of whether or not to where they don't have to.
Yeah, just distance learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you have almost a third of the capacity that was already supposed to be in the school, not physically in the school buildings anymore.
Well, and I'll tell you one thing, and this is on the Floyd County side, which I still believe I'm still an advocate for Floyd County schools. Since they manage 4 high schools, they just need to absorb Rome managing 1. They can take on 1 more high school. Let's do it. They're willing to do it.
Hey,
I think they should do it.
I agree.
You take Floyd County schools. I don't think we need less schools. We need less school systems.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I mean, you got central offices for both those school systems, and people making lots of money, and you're building new schools and all these things. Well, they can share football fields, they can share baseball fields, whatever. I don't think there is space within the county, I believe, to absorb these students. And I say that because, the college in Floyd County has the College and Career Academy. Mm-hmm. Well, the last I heard, the Floyd County College and Career Academy was at the 800 students. That's huge. Yeah. That means there's more students at the College and Career Academy than any individual high school. So they're fed by Armurchie, Model, CUSA, and as they send those kids over to the Floyd County College and Career Academy, that frees up classroom space at those high schools. I think there's a negotiation to be made, or at least go through a concept of having Floyd County schools absorb Rome City schools. It's only logical. It would save taxpayers money. You can educate all the kids and keep in place. Obviously, I would prefer the Floyd County school system run Rome, just because they seem to be doing better in education. I think the educational attainment would improve with those Rome City school students if Floyd County schools managed it.
Well, according to the Rome school superintendent, you can't measure a student's success by their scores.
Well, I've always been an advocate of having one school system here, because
without a doubt, yes.
Most counties only have one. Mm-hmm. But this goes back to that old saying, at the root of all evil is greed, and too many chiefs and not enough Indians. The reason why is the same reason why we still have joint services in Floyd County and the city of Rome, but we don't have only one governing body.
That's true. I mean, they do. The last I heard, they had like 126 intergovernmental agreements. So there are a lot of intergovernmental agreements between the city and the county. But yeah, I think it needs to go beyond that. I think one school system could do it. I mean, at the same time, I know we're not talking about police, but honestly, I don't know why. I don't know why we have a state patrol, sheriff's department, city police, and county police. I mean, I have Floyd County Police could easily absorb Rome City Police as well. I mean, they both say they need officers. We'll combine the two and save taxpayer money. Right now, currently the city is saying we need a new building for our city police officers because they're sharing the one downtown, which I don't know what the problem with that is.
No, they're not anymore. They've moved to an abandoned elementary school because one of our city commissioners decided to give away the city's access to that building to get the forum.
But
once
you know,
again,
I
that
will say this:
validates we need one police system, one law enforcement.
in that though, the idea to go to the old Glenwood school came out of a think tank from an officer who was in college. So I think that in itself just shows how good how good our officers are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they came out with an idea of saving money, saving taxpayer dollars, taking a abandoned facility that we have already paid for so that our county officers can move into there and not have to spend any more money to find a new facility or building.
Well, don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about the officers are great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No,
I agree.
absolutely.
We're talking about efficiency, though.
Yeah.
And that's all I was saying.
Even the city and county employees are great. I've worked with all those employees, whether it's water, sewer, finance.
Mm-hmm.
The employees are great. As a matter of fact, the employees don't go along with this either. If you polled those employees in city and county right now and ask them what they think of this $120 million in bond, if you can find 10% that think it's a good idea, I'll be shocked.
Yep.
I mean, they're logical, analytical people that want the best for their community, and they pay taxes too. They don't want the tax burden either.
Yep.
The problem is not within the employees of Rome City or Floyd County. The problem is in this leadership group that is
That's taking over the city.
It's sense in making intelligent decisions.
Yep.
Again, product of the local school systems. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. And that's one of the reasons why this municipal election cycle is so important and why it needs to be the first priority on every person that lives in this city's mind. It must be, just simply because if you are not if you're not paying attention to it, your taxes are going to go through the roof. Your access to or your more efficient access, I guess you would say, to local services is going to fall. You're going to be assuming a lot more burden and responsibility financially than you would have without these guys. I mean, they are putting more and more on these city residents than really what I believe most voting are typical even year election cycle voting members of the Rome City system there think is actually on there. And that's one of the reasons why this election is so important, because if not, you're going to be in a worse place than where you are now.
I think this is probably the most important election in the city of Rome.
Oh, yes.
In the history. Yep.
In history. If it's not won by conservatives in this election, it will be like Baltimore, Detroit. It's going to be like an inner city community of blight and poverty. That's what's going to happen, because that's what they're turning it into. Yep. And, so Harry Brock and Wayne Robinson absolutely need to win. I mean, you've got, along with retaining the conservative commissioners we've got a problem. And, I mentioned one other thing when I spoke at the city commission, and I hesitated on going into it, but it's a legitimate concern of mine. Is Bill Collins even participating in this? He has been the largest, loudest advocate for this bond resolution of anybody, which that's a huge conflict of interest. This isn't a perceived conflict of interest. You've got the husband on the city commission passing a bond package that benefits his wife, Faith Collins, as the chair of the Rome City School Board.
Yep.
How can you do that? How can you even allow that? I mean, even if there wasn't a law, you would think if you're an honest person, you would say, you know what, I need to recuse myself from this vote. My wife is the chair of the Rome City School Board. But he didn't do it. Not only did he not recuse himself, he was the most outspoken advocate for this bond resolution. And that bothers me.
What kind of bothered me a little bit was not a single one of them turned around and asked the city attorney if he should actually have to recuse himself.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single one of them did that, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, and like I said, maybe legally he could have voted, but in my former job, I also worked with recruiting business and industry, so I worked with the development authority, and I remember we had a local bank president that was served on the development authority, and the development authority took their money and they invested in bonds and some mutual funds and things like that. Well, they chose her bank to buy those from. She got no money for it. She got no income for it. But she said up front, you know what? I would feel better if I recused myself from this vote. I don't want any hint of impropriety. And so she did. Now, see, that's integrity. That's respectful. And it passed, and they were the best rate. But just to without having a hint of impropriety, she voluntarily said, I need to recuse myself from the vote. That's what you should do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Bill Collins' wife does receive a stipend or a paycheck by sitting on the chairman of the.
And Bill Collins obviously receives money as commissioner, and 3 times more or more than double what the other commissioners. I don't know if you know this, but out of the 6 of the 9 commissioners, 6 of those 9 commissioners basically receive $8,600 a year in taxpayer money, roughly 84 to 87. So roughly $8,600. And then there's 3 of them that receive a lot more, 18,000, 20,000, and 22,000.
Hold on. How?
Wait, where's that at?
Yeah. How is that happening?
Record. I've got it right here. I did an open records request. So what happens is 6 of those 9 commissioners get their $8,600 a year.
Yeah.
But you got Sunday Stevenson, Mark Cochran, and Bill Collins that get the 18, 20, and 22,000 because they've opted in for some insurance. So we're paying their family insurance and things like that. Now, I don't fault them for opting to get insurance if they can get it. But what we have to look at is taxpayers. Are they really worth 2 to 3 times more of
than
our
the others
money than the other commissioners?
Wow.
You're looking shocked.
Yeah.
I am shocked.
Yeah,
I am shocked because it makes more sense now why those 3 vote in a packet, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I like I said, the 2 that are up, Harry Brock and Wayne Robinson. I mean, I've known Harry forever, and I think he's a great guy, and I'm glad he's doing it because Harry is. He's not somebody just jumping in and being pushed in by somebody. He's been involved in city issues and city government for probably 20 to 25 years. He's
exactly.
a great guy. And Wayne has developed more properties around Rome probably than 90% of the people. So they're great.
But anyway, no, that's Wayne and Harry are by far some of the best people that could be running for these positions. A lot because of what you said there. You have someone that has so much experience and really getting behind growth development and has been so engaged in the Rome City community that you can't find someone else that would be more qualified for that position. And then we're talking about wanting to expand and wanting to develop and wanting to grow the city and really bringing out a better base and creating more quality opportunities for folks to come in and to work and to get better jobs so they can get better pay. So where the city can, I'll be honest with you, can get more in their tax base and their revenue to develop a lot of these things. You're squeezing the what they're doing now as far as the tax increases and everything. They're squeezing the people that are able to pay taxes, where you have an entire base there that are not paying any taxes. We have a very high population in the city here that are well below the poverty level and don't pay any taxes at all. So they're not paying property taxes. They're not paying for the school, the millage rate. They're not paying for the city millage rate. They're not paying any of that.
Yeah, that's a great comment. But, the better option than raising taxes on the existing taxpayers in the city is to bring in more taxpayers.
That's great.
Yes.
The tax burden. But you're not going to bring in more taxpayers when you're basically saying you can have lower taxes living outside the city. What they're doing by passing this is they're going to run people out of the city, residents, businesses, and industries. They will leave because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you move a mile outside the city limits to lower your tax burden? I mean, I come from industry. If you save pennies, you make the decision to save pennies. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. You see the property taxes for some of our industries. I mean, there's industries that pay $2 and $3 million in property taxes in this county. It's not a decision for them. They'll move outside the city limits. And I don't see how this commission can't understand that, when what they should be trying to do is to bring in more industry, more business, and more residents that own their residents so that they pay property taxes to have more property tax payers, not higher property taxes on less taxpayers.
I just don't think they understand, which is another reason why I think Wayne and Harry are the perfect candidates, plus, Craig and Jim to kind of move in and be a part of the change inside of Rome. Because the reality is it's hard for people who have never been there or have to understand the industry or the dynamic between downtown development, developing property, and business, and how that works in government. If you don't understand or have never had to be a part of any of that, then you have a lack of understanding when it comes to what makes that formula work to benefit an area. And we see from the industry side or from, a developmental side or just, even in politics, how all three have to work together to make a cohesive community. But if you've only seen from a, I guess you could say,
a nonprofit,
a HUD housing perspective.
Thank you for being.
You know what I'm saying? Then that's the only way that you can relate to how you bring in these industries. We got to stop doing feel good projects. And
Jamie, it's not even just the HUD housing projects. I mean, I'm an opponent to the Rome Housing Authority. I'm not in favor of our Northwest Georgia Housing Authority. I'm not a fan. But it's not just them. I mean, you look at all that low-income housing they just built behind Anna K. Davey. I mean, we're talking hundreds of apartments. Well, it's all low-income housing, too. It's not owned by the Housing Authority. It's a private entity, but that doesn't make any difference in who's going to be there. It's going to be tenants that aren't paying property taxes, right?
Yep.
Now, you've got a developer it's not Housing Authority, so there is a developer doing it that's going to pay property taxes. But how many more of these developers are even going to develop housing if they come in and inside the city we can develop this and we can pay $2 million in property taxes, or we can move 1 mile out and we can pay $500,000 in property taxes?
Well, that's the difference too, right? We're going to overstimulate in low income housing to the point to where you're not going to have any developers want to come in.
That's right.
Nobody's going to want to live there.
It will end up being a community of blight and poverty. That's what we're going to have.
Yep.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Well, Ken, I want to say thank you for coming on with us. In all honesty, we could not have had anyone else on the show that would have been as knowledgeable in this area and has gone as extensively into it and bringing out all the information, all the facts, and crunching all the numbers as what you've done with it with us on here. And I just want to say thank you for coming on and
I
absolutely.
I had one commissioner, he asked me, he said, why are you so involved in this? You don't even live in the city. Well, to me, it's like a cancer. If you got a cancer in your body and you allow it to grow and spread, it can kill the whole body. What we've got in the communities around Pepperwarmer, Chicusa, and Cave Spring and those areas, we're okay. But the city of Rome, there's problems in the city of Rome. We've got major problems in the city of Rome. I mean, crime's going up. Educational attainment's decreasing, and now we're talking about raising taxes. And if we allow this to grow and spread without doing something about it, it's going to destroy the whole county. I mean, everyone within Floyd County should be concerned about this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's going to start in the city. It's the highest concentrated area of population inside of the county. And the moment that the city starts to fall, especially it being the county seat, we have serious issues.
That's right.
I think more people need to get out and take this as serious as you are. And thank you. I mean, you told us stuff today that we didn't know that we need to go explore a little bit more, because I really don't think that the IGA is legal.
Well,
I don't think that they can do that.
Thank you for having me on the show. I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken.
No problem. Thank you, Ken.
All right.
So I got to say that was very informative.
Yeah, and actually he pointed out some things that I wasn't necessarily aware of. And honestly, I really don't think that intergovernmental agreement is legal, because then basically what we're alluding to is that if the commission changes like we say it should, then the school board can sue if they choose not to fulfill or raise the millage rate.
Yeah, if the East Blast in 5 years is not passed again.
So think about this analogy, right? Worst case scenario. Best case for us, we get those awful commissioners off the city commission. We get new commissioners in, right? We decide to do a millage rollback or keep the millage rate steady, but a East Bloss fails. So there has to be a 1% increase over the gap. What could happen if the school board is not replaced at that time is that the school board could sue the city for breach of the intergovernmental agreement that was forcibly bound to them by the previous commission. And as Ken kind of alluded, we also now know why those three are voting together, is because they are paid, almost 2 times. Well, some more than 2 times, some almost 3 times more than the rest of the commissioners for being a public servant.
Yeah, for getting those additional benefits, their insurance that is offered.
Crazy.
Wow. So yeah, they have they have, I guess, say they have that
I mean-
need to continue with these seats and to really pull all their efforts together to keep others from voting against them.
They have they have reason to collude, which is
Yes,
what they're doing.
absolutely. Mhm.
You know, now it makes sense why Mark Cochran voted for Sunday to be mayor and why she made him mayor pro temp.
Mhm.
So interesting.
Yeah, the little things you learn when you actually
get out.
listen to people.
When you actually get out and listen to the public.
Exactly.
So
Well, with that, how about giving us your final thoughts?
it's very important. It's a short sprint. Municipal elections are not long. It is literally from the end of August to November 7th. November 7th. I don't care if we have to grab buses, whatever we have to do, we have to get people out to vote and voting for good people to be on the city commission. We have to, you know what? We have to vote out some of these incumbents. That's it. Well, there are two incumbents that need to stay, and that's Craig and Jim Bojo. Craig McDaniel and Jim Bojo.
Yes. So
The rest of them gotta go.
November 7th is the key date with this. But I will say October 16th, early voting starts. Don't wait until election day just to vote. Don't do it.
And here's the thing, right? So early voting this year for the municipal elections is going to be at the elections office, like always. Then there's going to be availability at the library, I'm pretty sure, for 1 week, the Civic Center for another week, and the Anthony Center. This is not going to be like the general elections that we usually see, to where you have early voting in multiple locations. There will always be early voting at the elections office, but for the other 3 weeks of early voting, it's going to be a different location. So be mindful of that. And our great elections office is going to make you very aware of it. So
yes, yeah, but again, do not wait until November 7th with this. Get out, vote as early as you can. That way, there is no reason that could come up on election day that could keep you from going to vote. And after you have voted, you now have time to get out, grab others to go to the polls and get them to vote as well. That way you're going out, casting your ballot, and then grabbing 4 or 5 other people that you know that are concerned about this issue and getting them to the polls to vote as well. That's the way that we overcome any of these issues, is to essentially have 5 to 6 times more votes than what anybody else has.
Yeah, and Justin made a great point. Vote early so you can go grab 2-3 more people before election day, and then go grab people on election day.
Yeah, exactly.
This is too important for the county, not just for the entire city of Rome, but that's the county seat. Their cancerous ideology will flood into the county if we do not stop it here.
Yep.
That's it.
Because there's only so much you can pack in a single area before it starts to overflow.
That's it.
But, well, with that, this is Conservatives Talk, and